Okay, in this section, we're going to look at firewalls and security systems. This is a very important part of corporate security. Basically, it is the primary line of defense between evil influences and actors and the corporate security area. So let's go ahead and look at the desktop. Okay, a firewall is a network device that controls inbound and outbound traffic based on a set of rules, and that's what it is. There's a huge job market for people that can understand and program firewall rules. That is a very vital tool and a very vital skill set to have if you're going to be involved in corporate security at all. So basically, you've got a diagram here, you've got the internet, and then firewall protects the router. This can be a hardware or software appliance. However, software firewalls, because they reside typically on a client computer, they put the primary defense wall way back here. And that is a mistake, I think. And I'm not alone in that. A lot of people are not fans of software-based firewalls. Essentially, if you're depending on a software firewall residing on a computer, then the hacker's already inside your network. So that can be an issue. So most useful and effective firewall, in my opinion, is a hardware appliance that is the first thing that the signal hits once it enters into the company's hardware, the company's network. So you got the firewall, then the router that goes into a switch, and that feeds the signal to the clients. Hardware firewall, I just described it. It's a physical appliance. It's actually a device, and it sits in the network chain here. Basically, it's the first thing that the signal hits from the internet, and that filters out everything before you ever get to the router or the switch, because you don't really want a hacker inside your router either. Software firewall, that's a firewall that runs on the client usually. It's implemented in software and runs on a computer. Now, you can put that computer first in your chain, and that would make it a hardware firewall, though. Basically, you're using a separate appliance. So software firewalls typically run on the client themselves. Open source firewall, this is a firewall that's free. Now, the problem with that is the code is open source, which means anybody can go into it and modify it. So the problem with an open source firewall is that the code is out there on the internet, and it's fairly easy to analyze and figure out vulnerabilities. Proprietary firewall, on the other hand, this is like Cisco, a company that builds the firewall appliances, and that software design is proprietary, which means you don't have the right to look at it. It's generally not available to people to reverse engineer. So a proprietary firewall can be a lot more effective tool. Next generation firewall combines functionality of packet filtering, stateful packets, with other technologies to detect and block a network attack. Stateless firewalls, packet filters. This is a packet filter. It's a firewall that allows or blocks packets based on information in the packet header. So if you're aware, packet headers contain things like the IP address of the sender, the IP address of the receiver, port numbers, things like that. And so a stateful packet or a packet filter looks at that information, and then if it senses something wrong, then it filters the packet or it blocks it. Access control list, we've already gone over. An ACL is a list of rules. It's used by the firewall to control inbound and outbound. Typically, all outbound information will be allowed unless they're using the firewall as some kind of control system so that, keep people from going to questionable websites. But for the most part, outbound traffic is allowed. Inbound traffic is where the trouble comes, because that's people trying to come through the firewall. Stateful packet, that's a dynamic packet filter. A stateful firewall, it's a firewall that monitors and tracks active network connection sessions and blocks a packet that does not belong. So if the packet does not have an active session tag, then it gets blocked. Host-based, that is a software firewall. We just talked about it. It runs on the computer, controls inbound and outbound traffic just to that computer. Once again, if you're depending on that, the attacker is already inside your network. He's already inside your router and inside your switches. You're just basically protecting a computer. This can also be a problem when within the network itself. In fact, in most corporate networks, you'll find that the individual firewalls like Windows Defender have been turned off, because it makes it complicated then for the IT professionals to have to go back in and set rules for every single one, and especially if you don't want to set process or policy, you don't want to set group policy, then it makes it very complicated for the IT professionals to have to set the rules for every individual or group of individuals for their PCs to make sure that the required software, the things that are supposed to be getting in and out, are able to. Intrusion detection, basically this is a software or hardware device that generally looks for malicious activity on the network or security policy violations. It does not do anything about them except maybe set off an alarm. So that is the difference between intrusion detection and intrusion prevention. Network intrusion detection system is a system that detects threat. Host-based intrusion, that is a solution that detects a threat, but it runs on the individual computers. It does not run on the network in general. Network intrusion prevention is another story entirely. This is a software or hardware appliance that not only looks for suspicious activity, but then it stops it. It will shut down that segment of the network, or it will shut down that host so that it can't make network contact. Inline mode or in-band mode, that is a network intrusion protection or prevention system that works when network traffic is passed through. So basically you've got traffic, it sits on the network and monitors the stream, and it does its job based on packets that are coming through. Passive mode or out of band is a device that receives a copy of the network traffic. So basically you're looking at something that you have a splitter, and one part of the stream goes off to the NIDS device and the other part goes on. And then this can be effective, but it can also be an issue because it sometimes can't react as fast as it needs to. So it's looking at a copy, but then it's got to do something out in the real network. So once it sees something going on in the copy, it goes off to the real network, whereas the inline mode is working on the real network. It can react immediately. Now, the other side of that coin is that the inline mode slows the bandwidth down because it has to have time to react. Whereas the passive mode, the network is not slowed down at all. So you have to weigh the options. Okay, we want our network bandwidth slowed down just a hair, but that allows our intrusion reaction to happen faster. Don't forget participation activities, and then you have a challenge activity, and then you can move on to section 3. All right, so that's a brief introduction to firewalls and intrusion prevention in general. Once you've gotten this completed, you can move on to section 3. If you have any questions, be sure to contact me in class or via the Canvas inbox, and have a good day.